I am Hannah Arendt. I was born on October 14, 1906, in Hanover, Germany, to a secular Jewish family. I grew up in Königsberg, where I spent my childhood and early youth. At 18, I enrolled at the University of Marburg, where I studied philosophy under Martin Heidegger, and we developed a complex romantic relationship. Later, I moved to study with Karl Jaspers at the University of Heidelberg, where I completed my doctoral thesis on the concept of love in St. Augustine in 1929. With the rise of Nazism in Germany, I found myself in danger due to my Jewish origins, so I fled to Paris in 1933. In France, I worked with Jewish organizations to help refugees and married Heinrich Blücher. When Germany invaded France in 1940, I was briefly interned in Gurs camp. I managed to escape and immigrated to the United States in 1941 with my husband. In America, I began a new life. I worked as an editor and writer and published my book, The Origins of Totalitarianism, in 1951, which achieved great success and established my reputation as a prominent political thinker. In 1958, I published The Human Condition, which is considered one of my most important philosophical works. In 1961, I covered Adolf Eichmann's trial in Jerusalem for the New Yorker magazine. This experience resulted in my controversial book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, in 1963, where I introduced the concept of the banality of evil, which sparked wide debates. Throughout my career, I taught at several prestigious American universities, including the University of Chicago and the University of California, Berkeley. I continued writing and teaching until late in my life, addressing various topics in philosophy and politics. I died on December 4, 1975, in New York City, leaving behind a rich and influential intellectual legacy in the fields of political philosophy and ethics. My ideas and writings are still widely studied and discussed to this day, contributing to our understanding of politics, society, and human nature. Good management relies on dialogue and participation, not dictation and control. A true leader creates space for others to think and act freely. Effective management requires a deep understanding of the constantly changing world. True power in management comes from persuasion, not coercion. Good management means taking responsibility for decisions and their consequences. A successful manager understands that diversity of opinions leads to better decisions. Wise management requires balancing respect for tradition with readiness for change. Effective leadership means the ability to see the world from multiple perspectives. Good management creates an environment where new ideas can flourish. A wise manager realizes that true authority stems from trust and mutual respect. Effective management requires the courage to face uncomfortable truths. A good leader understands that teamwork is the foundation of sustainable success. Wise management means acknowledging our mistakes and learning from them. A successful manager creates a shared vision that inspires others to work towards a common goal. Good management means listening effectively as much as speaking wisely. True leadership requires the courage to make difficult decisions in times of crisis. Effective management recognizes the value of every individual in the organization. A wise manager understands that long-term success depends on values and ethics. Good management creates a balance between individual needs and collective goals. An effective leader realizes that authority is a responsibility, not a privilege.
Think being a manager is just about calling the shots. Think again. In today's fast-paced business world, being a manager is more than just overseeing tasks. It's about leadership and vision, motivating your team and setting clear long-term goals. Communication is key. Clear, constructive feedback and active listening build trust and open dialogue. And when it comes to decision-making, the best managers gather info, weigh options and make choices they stand by. Flexibility is a must. Adapting to new challenges keeps you ahead of the curve. Empathy and emotional intelligence connect you with your team on a deeper level, fostering a supportive environment. Delegation empowers your team, freeing you to focus on bigger tasks. Problem solving? Think critically and creatively. Integrity and ethical standards build trust. Time management keeps everything on track. And never stop learning. Continuous improvement is key. Master these traits, and you'll lead your team to success and growth. So are you ready to be an exceptional manager?
Education is the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to assume responsibility for it. True education liberates the mind from the shackles of ready-made ideas. The task of education is to prepare children for a world that is constantly changing. The crisis in education is a reflection of the crisis in society as a whole. Education must balance respect for the past with preparation for the future. The aim of education is not to fill minds, but to open them. Education is the bridge between generations and between past and future. Education should prepare students for participation in public life. True education teaches how to think, not what to think. The crisis in education is a crisis in the transmission of values and knowledge between generations. Education should instill a love of learning rather than merely transmitting information. The teacher's responsibility is to present the world to students, not to shape them according to a specific vision. Good education prepares students to ask the right questions, not just give the right answers. The crisis in education reflects the conflict between tradition and innovation in society. Education should be a space for critical thinking and open dialogue. The task of education is to prepare children for a world that is no longer as it was and not yet what it will be. The task of education is to prepare children for a world that is no longer as it was and not yet what it will be. True education respects the individuality of each student and encourages diversity in thinking. The crisis in education stems from our failure to understand the changing nature of the world we live in. Education should be a bridge between the private and the public, between the individual and society.
Exposing the hidden power in education, you need to watch this if you struggle with understanding the true value of learning. Hannah Arendt, a brilliant German philosopher, saw education as more than just absorbing facts and figures. She believed it's the bedrock of understanding our world and society. Arendt argued that true education should be politically and economically neutral, allowing us to develop our intellectual and personal capacities freely. But here's the kicker: education, according to Arendt, isn't just an individual journey, it's a societal responsibility. Imagine a world where society creates a supportive and stimulating environment for learning, fostering critical thinking, innovation, and personal expression. From Arendt's perspective, education is essential for spreading awareness and driving social development. It's about building a foundation of freedom and justice, ensuring progress and prosperity for all. So next time you hit the books, remember, you're not just learning for yourself, you're shaping the future of society.
Freedom is not something that is granted, but something that is exercised. True freedom requires active participation in public life. Freedom is the capacity to begin something new. Freedom without responsibility turns into chaos. Freedom means the ability to think and act independently. True freedom can only be realized in a society that respects plurality. Freedom requires the courage to face uncertainty. Freedom is the essence of humanity. To deny it is to deny our humanity. True freedom is manifested in the ability to choose and take responsibility for that choice. Freedom is not a fixed state, but an ongoing process of struggle and renewal. Freedom without understanding of social context becomes an illusion. Freedom requires active engagement in public dialogue and political debate. Individual freedom cannot be separated from collective freedom. Freedom means the ability to see the world from multiple perspectives. True freedom requires liberation from fear and want. Freedom is the foundation upon which human dignity is built. Freedom requires awareness of our limitations and possibilities. Freedom without justice becomes a privilege for the few at the expense of the many. True freedom means taking responsibility for our actions and thoughts. Freedom is the ability to think and act in unexpected ways.
Why do 80% of people misunderstand what true freedom means? Let's unpack Hannah Arendt's perspective. For the brilliant Hannah Arendt, freedom isn't just doing what you want. It's about having a voice in the decisions that shape our world. Think about it. If you can't influence the future of your community, is your freedom really complete? Arendt believed true freedom means active participation in society, that it's not just a personal right, it's about belonging and contributing. When political systems limit our voices, freedom becomes an empty slogan. Freedom requires an environment where we can think and speak openly without fear. It's tied to justice and equality. Without these, freedom is just rhetoric. So what does freedom really mean to you? Are you living Arendt's vision of an engaged, active and just society? Let's reflect and strive for a world where freedom is a shared responsibility. After all, freedom isn't just a gift, it's a duty.
The life of the mind is a silent dialogue with oneself. Thinking is the space where we confront the truth of our existence. A rich mental life is the foundation of true freedom. Contemplation is the path to a deeper understanding of self and world. In the life of the mind, we are alone with our thoughts, yet not lonely. Critical thinking is our weapon against intellectual tyranny. The life of the mind requires the courage to face difficult questions. In our minds, we are free even in the most oppressive circumstances. Deep thinking is the basis of ethical action. The life of the mind is the space where we create meaning for our existence. Independent thinking is the first step towards freedom. In the life of the mind, we transcend the boundaries of time and space. Critical thought is our fortress against extreme ideologies. A rich mental life makes us more human. Thinking is the action that distinguishes us as humans. In our minds, we can reshape the world. The life of the mind is the source of creativity and innovation. Deep thinking reveals to us the complexities of reality. In the life of the mind, we confront ourselves honestly. Critical thinking is the foundation of a democratic society.
Why are there not more people talking about mental life and deep thinking? Hannah Arendt's philosophy might just have the answers. Hannah Arendt, one of the most profound political philosophers of the 20th century, emphasized two fundamental concepts: mental life and deep thinking. For Arendt, mental life isn't just about daily routines, but about engaging with the world on a deeper level. It's about understanding the complex fabric of existence, history, and politics. Deep thinking, according to Arendt, goes beyond just sharing information. It's about critically analyzing issues and uncovering profound insights. Arendt believed that our thoughts are shaped by the historical and cultural contexts we live in. She urged us to look beyond the surface and explore the motivations and values driving human behavior. In essence, Hannah Arendt teaches us that mental life and deep thinking are keys to understanding ourselves and the world. So keep questioning, keep contemplating, and dive deep. The journey of the mind is endless.
Action is how we leave our mark on the world. Thought needs time to mature before it can turn into action. Meaningful action springs from thoughtful consideration. Critical thinking helps us understand the consequences of our actions. Action without thought can lead to unintended consequences. Thought guides action, and action nourishes thought. Reflecting on our actions helps us learn and grow. Effective action requires a balance between thinking and doing. Thought without action can lead to paralysis and indecision. Action is the true test of our ideas and beliefs. Thought and action together form the essence of political life. Thought without action is hollow, and action without thought is blind. Thinking is an internal dialogue with oneself, and action is the embodiment of this dialogue in the world. True thinking inevitably leads to action. Action without reflection becomes mere mechanical activity. Critical thinking is the foundation of effective action. Action gives meaning to thought and tests its validity. Thought creates new possibilities for action. Action without thought can be dangerous. Deep thinking requires temporary withdrawal from the active world.
What if every step you took was a deliberate dance with destiny? Hannah Arendt, a towering figure in philosophy, teaches us that effective action is far more than just doing something. It's about imbuing our actions with deep thought and purpose. Arendt argues that true action begins with critical thinking and reflection. It's not just about moving forward, but understanding the ripple effects of our choices. Imagine contemplating the impact and long-term consequences of every decision you make. For Arendt, effective action is also grounded in ethical and political values. It's about contributing to personal and social progress. This means engaging in dialogue, fostering collaboration, and building communities that thrive on justice and equity. In essence, Hannah Arendt reminds us that effective action is thoughtful, responsible, and purpose-driven. It's about creating a world where our actions reflect our highest ideals and contribute to sustainable progress. So, next time you act, ask yourself, is this mere action, or is it thoughtful action? Let's strive for the latter and build a just and understanding world together.
Collective responsibility is the price of living in society. We are collectively responsible for a world we did not create, but in which we live. Collective responsibility does not mean collective guilt. Silence in the face of injustice is a form of complicity. Collective responsibility requires awareness of how our actions affect others. We are responsible for the actions committed in the name of our society. Collective responsibility is the foundation of social solidarity. Not acting is also a form of acting. Collective responsibility requires active participation in public life. We are responsible for the world we leave to future generations. Collective responsibility means refusing to benefit from injustice, even if we didn't directly cause it. Individual freedom does not exempt us from collective responsibility. Collective responsibility is the flip side of collective rights. We are responsible for confronting injustice in our society, even if we didn't cause it. Collective responsibility requires critical reflection on our collective identity. Acknowledging collective responsibility is the first step toward social change. Collective responsibility does not negate individual responsibility, but complements it. We are responsible for maintaining the institutions that protect our collective rights. Collective responsibility means recognizing that our fate is tied to the fate of others.
What if I told you responsibility is the cornerstone of a just society? Hannah Arendt's insights might just change how you see the world. Hannah Arendt, a profound German philosopher, saw responsibility as more than a mere task. For her, it's an ethical and political experience, urging us to consider the ripple effects of our actions. Arendt believed that true responsibility involves critical thinking and contemplating the consequences of our decisions. It's about acting with good intentions and awareness, paving the way for justice and societal progress. But Arendt didn't stop at the individual level. She extended responsibility to political and social structures. calling for transparency and accountability in governments and institutions. Her vision? A world where policies reflect fairness and equality for all. In a nutshell, for Arendt, responsibility is the bedrock of a thriving society. It's about living conscientiously, ensuring our actions positively impact others and the world around us. So next time you think about responsibility, remember, it's not just about you, it's about all of us.
Power springs from collective agreement, while violence springs from the barrel of a gun. Violence can destroy power, but it is utterly incapable of creating it. True power does not need violence to assert itself. Violence appears where true power is in jeopardy. Power relies on legitimacy, while violence relies on brute force. Violence can be justifiable, but it can never be legitimate. Power needs popular support, while violence needs implements. Violence destroys power, but it cannot create or substitute for it. True power stems from cooperation and agreement. Violence is an admission of the failure of power. Power is built on trust, while violence is built on fear. Violence can achieve short-term goals, but it destroys long-term foundations. True power depends on persuasion, not coercion. Violence is an acknowledgement of the impotence of politics. Power requires dialogue, while violence imposes silence. Violence can change reality, but it cannot create a new reality. Legitimate power respects human rights, while violence violates them. Violence can be a means, but it can never be an end. Power is built on mutual respect, while violence is built on humiliation. Violence destroys the social bonds on which true power depends.
If you don't like arguments but still witness conflicts, then it's time to rethink our conversations. Hannah Arendt, a brilliant German philosopher, saw violence as more than just a physical act. She believed it's a sign of failed communication and a breakdown in human connection. For Arendt, violence reflects deeper issues in society, like injustice and tyranny, where people can't express themselves constructively. It's when words lose their power and frustration takes over. But here's the kicker. Arendt didn't just leave us pondering. She offered a solution. She urged us to revive our political and cultural dialogues, to build understanding and empathy. By enhancing justice and cooperation, we can tackle the roots of violence. In short, Arendt saw violence as a symptom of silence. To her, the antidote is clear: more dialogue, more empathy, and a commitment to peaceful conflict resolution. So next time tensions rise, remember, it's not just about stopping the fight, but starting the conversation.
True evil lies in the absence of thought. The life of the mind is a silent dialogue with oneself. Power springs from collective agreement, while violence springs from the barrel of a gun. Education is the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to assume responsibility for it. Collective responsibility is the price of living in society. Thought without action is hollow, and action without thought is blind. Evil is not radical, it is shallow, yet it is capable of destroying the entire world. Thinking begins when we are confronted with questions for which we have no ready-made answers. Violence can destroy power. It is utterly incapable of creating it. True education liberates the mind from the shackles of ready-made ideas. We are collectively responsible for a world we did not create, but in which we live. Thought creates new possibilities for action. The most dangerous evil is that which is committed without thought. The life of the mind is the space where we confront ourselves honestly. True power does not need violence to assert itself. Education is the most powerful tool for change in society. Collective responsibility requires awareness of how our actions affect others. Meaningful action springs from thoughtful consideration. Understanding evil does not mean justifying it, but confronting it better. A rich life of the mind is the foundation of true freedom.
What if evil isn't about bad people, but bad thinking? Let's dive into Hannah Arendt's philosophy. Hannah Arendt flips the script on evil. It's not just about bad apples, it's about rotten barrels. She argues that evil stems from people shutting themselves off, losing their sense of moral duty. Think of it like this. Imagine living in a bubble where you can't see how your actions affect others. That's where Arendt believes evil begins, when people stop thinking deeply about their actions and lose the ability to engage in meaningful dialogue. She says this lack of critical thinking and reflection spreads violence and injustice. It's not that people are born evil, but conditions around them can lead them astray. So how do we combat this? Arendt calls for a return to critical thinking and open dialogue. Only by talking and thinking deeply about our actions can we build a more just and peaceful society. In short, Arendt challenges us to think, reflect and talk, because that's how we fight evil.